Hey, it's August, and if you didn't know it, it's already August. And we are starting a brand new series for this month here at the Scottsdale Center. It's based on the book by Mary Morrissey called The Building Your Field of Dreams. It's a book from 1996. And it really has 4 parts to it, so I'll be addressing one part today, and then over the next few weeks, Reverend Jill will be addressing more parts from the book. And by the end of the month, you'll be manifesting your little hearts out. Ain't that fun? Whee! Whee! So today I'm going to be looking at what Mary calls clearing the field. And it's really a starting point for where we want to start to, we have a dream, we want to do something and accomplish something and make that experience. But we really have to really get either really good base start, a good foundation. It's like our foundation class that we teach here. Before you take other classes, you have to have this foundations class. And that's where you start really looking at the science of mind and the principles and the laws and the writings of Ernest Holmes. This is really a great metaphor for actually farmers planting in the ground, the seed soil plant. If you remember from foundation class, the learning circle is seed soil plant. And so the talk today about clearing the field is much like that. So we're actually clearing the field so we can actually have what we want and what we dream, have our dreams come true. This week, whenever I think about farming, I always think about my dad. My dad was a farmer guy when he kind of retired out of construction work and things. And I used to see him. He was quite amazing. He used to prepare fields for planting, whether it be just his own personal garden, or he had this big garden by the Ohio River where he grew these big pink tomatoes. And they were like this big. And but he would be out there. He wasn't one of these guys who would actually take soil samples and do all that, But he would just kind of knew what to do because he'd grown up with it. So he would actually every year get the soil ready. It would lay fallow during the winter, but get it ready for the spring. So we'd have this bumper crop, and he always had this. And in many ways, it's a good metaphor because in this clearing the field, what we're trying to do is ground ourselves. Pun intended. We're trying to ground ourselves in this known as we clear the field. So been thinking also about the Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner. Remember that movie? Or the Ray Kinsella, the character is out in the middle of the cornfield in Iowa, and he keeps hearing this voice like, "Build it and they will come. Build it and they will come." And been thinking about that movie all week in that we are actually doing the same thing. We are getting this inner whisper from ourselves to build it and they will come. And it's more of like, think it and it will be. Right? So we can turn that around. Think it and it can be. So really, we are the actual farmers, and the field is our dreams. Our life is the field of dreams. Morrissey writes, we grow a crop of life through the thoughts we hold. We grow a crop of life through the thoughts we hold. And it is in these thoughts, in these seeds, these ideas that we have, that we are co-creating with God. So it's not just one person doing it or just us doing it. We're in this fabulous co-creation. We are creating along with God, and that's not meaning a separation because God is through us, in us, as us. We are co-creating with the divine itself. And also that what God can do through us, that we can do through ourselves. So God is always working through us, as this co-creator in all these dreams and anything that we do. So we are in the co-creating process at all times with the divine. So Mary writes about that when you decide to, on a dream, how your life can change. And she writes it can changes in 3 ways. The first one is that we get to recognize our deepest desires. We recognize our deepest desires. There is something yearning to be expressed through you at all times. And as humans, we can kind of block it sometimes, but it is always there, always nagging at us, always a loving whisper if we're listening to it. And also, as humans, we come from creation itself, so we are natural creators. So there's always something yearning to be expressed through us. So we get to recognize our deepest desires whenever we decide to make a dream come true and start the process. We also break through limiting thoughts and beliefs. As I mentioned before, we are natural creators, and we can be natural destroyers at the same time, because we can be our worst enemy when it comes to such things. And we'll talk a little bit about that later, what some of those blocks may be. So we recognize our deepest desires, we break through our limiting thoughts, and then the third one is that we experience the emergence of the soul. We're always being called to emerge, to expand our spirituality from within. And whenever we have these dreams that we start working on and manifest and planting and cultivating, we experience the emergence of our own soul. That's the sweet part of it. Yeah. And there is ditches along the way, as I call them. How about your past? Again, we can be the destroyers of our own dreams, and trying to fulfill our desires in ourselves. So we may have a history that will stop us from possibly manifesting. Mary has an interesting history. She was really one to write this book. When she was 17, she became pregnant as a young teen, and I think she had to go to a special school they had for girls who got pregnant. I mean, it was just a weird thing. And she thought all her dreams were over. She dreamed of being a teacher, and she kept a crumpled piece of paper in her pocket through all these times that said, "I'm going to be a teacher." And she kept it for years and years. She called it a crumpled piece of faith, I believe, right? Always kept it with her, even though when things really looked dark for her, and didn't know if these dreams would come true. I do find it amazing that she's when she started writing her books and had her center up in, I think it was in Oregon, that she became a teacher. That's what she is, and she's teaching us now. So she had that slim thread of faith that she was going to be a teacher, and she became that. And again, her history didn't start off so well, apparently. She's had other trials and tribulations too. It's funny, if you go to her website, you can see her. She has a master's degree and all kinds of things. She said what she's most proud of is her black belts in success and failure. So it's right there on our website. I kind of like that. So, black belt in failure and success. So the question is, do you feel overwhelmed by your dreams? Again, we're clearing the field, so we're looking at what kind of dreams do we want to experience? How do we want to, this to be expressed? Is money a problem? Do we feel like we're not worthy or receiving this good? So these are all the blocks that can come into play. On being overwhelmed, Mary writes this: if you are not in touch with your yearning, then you are not in touch with your true self. If you're not in touch with your yearning, you're not in touch with your true self. I think and I feel this way too, by the way, there's so many things I want to do that have so many interests. I want to do art, I want to write this, I want to do this and do this. And sometimes I have to prioritize them. And I think sometimes when I get this way, and it may be the same for you, is that whenever we feel overwhelmed, I don't think we've really gone deep enough and touched into exactly what we want to really pare it down. Because inside you, there is this thing that's coming up. And you may have a lot of interest, but really, what is it that really makes your heart sing? And we certainly cultivate this dream by listening to this divine intelligence that's within us. As far as money is concerned, I had a lot of people may think that they don't have the money to do something or feel hampered by that. Ernest Holmes, I found this writing in the textbook. This is more like an affirmation that he has. Always have an abundance of money and an abundance of whatever it takes to make my life happy and opulent. There is a continuous movement toward me of supply, of money, of all that I need to express the fullest life, happiness, and action. A nice affirmation from Dr. Holmes there. I will say that this is something I continue to work on. My dear Nancy is here, and she has a saying all the time that I really catch on to, and when I really embody it, it actually happens. Money is everywhere. And when I start thinking, I start finding it on the ground. I find it in my car, of all places. And so when I start thinking it changes the way I act and feel. And she's been really a great help for me on that, because it's something that I continue to work on. But when I can get into that place of knowing that money is everywhere, that my flow is unlimited and I'm abundant, and stay in that place as Dr. Holmes wrote, then I can experience more money and more supply for myself, and then I'd be able to tie that to other people. So, and on unworthy, Mary writes that we are trained to believe that we are unworthy. And I think that's so. I've actually turned that around to say that we are not trained to feel worthy. And I know for me, when I was growing up, I was certainly loved and cared for, but I don't remember thinking, was I worthy of things? And it just never really came up, and you may feel the same way. So I think we are not trained to feel the worthiness. Wayne Dyer, I miss Wayne Dyer, by the way, don't you? Yeah, it was something about that guy. It was really fantastic. He died 4 or 5 years ago, I believe. But Wayne has a great quote I found this week, and he wrote, "You are divine enough to ask and worthy enough to receive." You are divine enough to ask and worthy enough to receive. Ernest Holmes says that we come to a realization of our own worth and rightful place in the universe. And this is all work, this is all an inside job, co-creating with God, where we come through this and say, yes, that I am worthy of all that there is for the universe that it offers, and that we offer it. I've come up with, I've actually renamed Mary's, she calls it 5 dream questions. I call it the 5 fabulous dream questions. Why not? Because we can. First of all, if you have a dream and something you want to express or manifest, you can ask these 5 questions. On the board and some of the other things that we do here, we always ask, 3 questions. Does it fit the vision? Is the motive pure? And does it feel forced? And I ask those questions a lot of myself when I'm maybe purchasing something or whatever, or wanting to plan to do something. These are a little bit more in depth, and we'll go over each one of them. Number 1 is, does the dream enliven me? Does it make my heart sing with gladness? That the very thought of your dream of what you want to do, does it make you happy and joyous? If you're doing it now as a hobby, do you lose track of time whenever you're doing it? I remember, this has been probably 2009 or so, 2010. I remember sitting in my office, and at that time I was doing a lot of writing for magazines and New York Times and a few other things. I remember sitting there one day, and the window was open. It was just a beautiful, I think it was a spring day. It was perfect weather, not like now. And the window was open, and I remember I was thinking, wow, this is what I remember I was writing a piece about a banker. And it wasn't necessarily so exciting, but I remember I'm getting a chance to do this, and that was it was like a manifested dream. I would love doing this. And I remember that moment thinking like, wow, I'm in my element here. This is good. Then I got to work, by the way, and got to writing. So does the dream enliven you? Number 2, does the dream align with my core values? Does it align with my core values? We certainly can never or should never do anything that goes against our integrity. So the dream that you have, is it going to be legal, first of all? And we'd rather have you here than in the West Valley in prison. Yeah, so does it go against the core values that you have, the goodness that you have? Is it going to hurt anybody else possibly, or hurt yourself? So that would be the second one. The third one is, do I need a higher source to make my dream come true? And we really discussed this about being in co-creation with God, that we have to make room for the divine in our lives to co-create this dream that we want to create. So we allow God to help us move through that and help us manifest the dream. Number 4, will the dream require me to grow into more of my true self? Ooh, that's scary. Like I said, we're always being invited to break out of our limited selves. This one stops a lot of people because change and expansion can be very, very scary. It's very easy to stay where we're at, stay in the rut, and to kind of just go on through life. What I call living life on default. And but this can be a big one for people to really embrace. I know that the the people that I talk to as far as sessions and even for myself, I always, whenever I've had to really expand or really challenged by something, move across country for a job or do something like that, I don't know if anybody's ever done that, it's always ended up better. I'm always better on the other side. It may not look it that way. It may be very scary at the time, but I'm always better for it when I get to the other side. So does a dream require me to grow into my true self? Number 5, will the dream ultimately bless others? Will it bless others? There's no such thing as a private good. So we are here for the whole, and we can do things for ourselves. And I think it gets into our core values if we start. I'm just doing it for me, for me, for me. So there is no private good. It's the sharing. That's what we're here to do as human beings. We're here to share ourselves, share our talents and our time with people, and we're always being called to do this. So ultimately, will the dream that you have, the company you want to start, or the art you want to make, will it bless others? And I think if you ask these 5 questions honestly about yourself, you can see where your dream is. And you'll be really on track. And as far as clearing the ground is what we're doing now, clearing the field, that you'll be very clear about your intention and what you want to do here. Then after you've answered these 5 questions, hopefully in the right way, we look at intention and faith and gratitude. Holmes says that through intention and willingness to hold a thought centered, the form will appear. So we can turn our focus light on the dream to illuminate it and set our attention, our priorities to make it come true, to propel the vision. We want to propel the vision that we have for our own dream. And where faith comes into play is that having an unwavering faith where something is not, we're not even questioning that it's going to come true or not, that you absolutely know. Dr. Holmes, let's see if I can find this page. 83. Yeah, here it is. I was talking about faith when it comes to all that we want to create, and he used the word demonstrate, which is basically manifestation or a dream coming true. Therefore, if a man is seeking to demonstrate, he must tell himself that he has faith in his power, in his ability, in the principle, and in the certainty of the demonstration for which he works. Faith, being a mental attitude, is according to the law, and even though one doubts, he can overcome his doubts and create the desired faith. So faith is a belief in the things not seen yet, of course, and Dr. Holmes believed that we got to this place where there is absolutely no contradiction, that it's unthinkable, it is impossible that what we want to create is not going to come into manifestation, because that is the faith that we need. And he calls it a mental assertion that elevates to the plane of realization. That's a real fancy way of saying, like, what I'm dreaming comes true. And manifest, we can actually see it and touch it and feel it. On gratitude, this is an important part of it also. A grateful mind is a great mind. Yes. And so gratitude releases this dynamic spiritual energy. It allows us to increase our sense of deserving. It also completes what I call called the law of circulation, where we're giving and we're also receiving, and we're also blessed in the gratitude that of all the things that we have, and we are turning that around to bless others through the dream that we have. All right? So how about our practicing the principles? This is one of Jill's things every week, practicing the principles. Yep, there they come. So the very first one, we want to establish a clear picture of the dream you desire and set your intention. So again, you can ask these 5 questions of yourself and what you want to come true. And again, if you answer it honestly and they all ring up green, the light is green, then continue on. So establish a clear picture of the dream that you want to desire as we go through this month here. Number 2, know that you are in co-creation with the divine. This is something some people kind of forget about, as we talked about here, but you're co-creating all the time with the divine. And when you do this, you are absolutely blessed in whatever path that you're taking, and it will manifest for you. Number 3, be thankful and know that you are deserving and worthy to live the life you envision. Let us go back to Wayne Dyer's quote. You are divine enough to ask and worthy enough to receive. Really put well. Be thankful then, know that you are deserving and worthy of the life you envision, even if your past has been a little rocky. And whose past hasn't? You know? We've all been there. We've all been to the rodeo and bucked off a few times. I get it. And we're still inhaling and exhaling. That's a good thing, right? It's the important thing. All right, so number 4, now get to planting those positive seeds. So this week, as we go throughout this week, be thinking about what you want to create, what you want to envision for yourself. Next week, Jill will be talking about, as you're planting the seeds, some fears that may come up for you. But during this week, get clarity and ask some of these questions of yourself, as something you've always wanted to do, and set your intention for it and get real clear. Clear the field for yourself on this dream that you want to express yourself. Y'all got that? All right. Planting positive seeds. That'd be a good thing. All right. This time, if you could just close your eyes as we go into this prayer time together. So we just take a moment of silence. What a blessing it is to be here on this Sunday morning in this blessed Center for Spiritual Living here in Scottsdale. Knowing and affirming that this peace and joy and love, this loving fellowship felt here this morning, the music and all the activity and all the volunteers, practitioners, just knowing and affirming that it is all this one divine essence, this perfect God working through us as us right now. And I know and affirm that I, Rev Glenn, know this one source that working through me as me, always has been, always will be, is this one divine spirit working through me as me. So in this divine knowing, I now speak the truth for each and every person here within earshot of this prayer right now, that each and every person is being loving to themselves and clearing their field. I know that there's this manifestation. There's these goals and dreams that rest into each and every person here. And that as we go throughout this day and throughout this week, there is a clearing of the mind, a clearing of the field, and in great anticipation of this divine planting seeds of thought for the dream itself. I know that each and every person here is in tune to this divine inner whisper that is unique to them right now. That they tap into this divine conversation with the divine. And they're in this co-creation process with God itself. Knowing and affirming that each and every idea and dream blesses the dreamer and all those others. For there is no such thing as a private good. We are all, as humans, here to bless each other and to create. So I bless this perfect manifestation of each and every dream so we clear the field as we go throughout this day and throughout this week. And affirming it is in this perfect manifestation exactly the way it should. So I'm very grateful that there is this one divine law that simply makes manifest this prayer as I have spoken it here and now. For this I give great thanks. So I release this prayer now to universal law, knowing that it is simply done. It is so, because I've said it here now. We affirm this by saying together, and so it is.